Good morning, everyone, and welcome to. Let me get rid of that. And welcome to another Tabletop Junkie stream. And today is a review. So this one is kind of personal to me. Ever since I was a small child, roughly about, I'd say about 5 years old, I fell in love with the concept of robots hiding out on planet Earth. Um, as vehicles or some form of technology in disguise, sentient robots, of course, and then they transform into vehicles or like forms of technology such as camera, boombox, cassette tape, airplanes, just about anything you could think of, even stationary weapons such as stationary things such as gun turrets, so on and so forth. And yes, I am talking about Transformers. So before we get started real quick, I'd like to say hello to Ironcaster. Ironcaster, thank you for being here. I have to give Ironcaster a lot of props. He's the reason why I got the Transformers tabletop game, official tabletop game by Renegade Studios. We're going to begin starting off with the book is nothing out of the ordinary that you would expect, especially out of and Mrs. Tabletop is here as well. All right, so the book starts off with on top of a brilliant cover that I think is magnificent and actually brings back a lot of the G1 memories from Generation 1 of Transformers back when the toy line started. And I believe it was between 1984 and 1987, or coming out in 88, of course. Um, I think it was one of the most genius things that they could plan out. They wanted to make a lot of Transformers so that way they can make different toys and toy lines. Like I said, it was an ingenious marketing plan back in the day, definitely, because all you had to do was draw one character and change the color scheme of each character. Hence the reason why Acid Storm, Thundercracker, and Skywarp all pretty much look like Starscream, with either minor differences such as color change or size, voice, and whatnot. The book begins with the introduction, which is basically the backstory of Transformers, and it has everything that you used to love about the G1. And by G1, I mean Generation 1, if that's not apparently obvious. So anyway, Generation 1, of course, including the famous Optimus Prime, Elita 1, RC. We cannot forget our famous one, our famous yellow favorite one, known as Bumblebee. Ironhide, Jazz, all those good people. All those good Transformers. So it does start in the backstory, give you a bit of background about uh, the actual story of the setting. Then it jumps into the system because the system is Essence 20, developed and created by Renegade Games. Essence 20 is basically a D20 system, but a little bit more rules light than your normal D20 system that you would probably have imagined from Wizards of the Coast, 3.5 edition D&D, or even the 5e rule set. Give me 1 second. I'm having a lot of sinus drainage this morning, so I do apologize. I gotta get something to drink. Do apologize. I had to take a drink a little bit. All right. So once you get past the introduction, it gets into character creation. Character creation comes in 8 steps, but it actually is labeled from step 0 to step 7. And these are actually easy steps to follow with references to what you need to read for each and every step. Starting with step 0, discuss with your GM and other players the concept of not just the game, but of your character. So this conversation is basically like session 0. Okay, it's basically it allows the PCs to say, "Hey, I remember this from the 1980s cartoon or modern comic Transformers or anything that could be lore heavy." To actually add to the lore of your games and to make sure that you guys agree that, okay, this is actually part of the game. What this basically allows you to do is brainstorm and bring in your own flavor to the Transformers universe. I do like Renegade. Is it Renegade Games or Studios? I think it's both actually. Renegade Studio Games. But let me check real quick because I don't want to be incorrect. Oh, Renegade Games Studios. So it is okay. So it is both. All right. So what this allows you to do is bring in your own personal lore, your own personal concepts to your actual setting that actually does not need to match anything from a TV show, comic book, or anything that anyone's particularly seen. It allows you to create the Transformers universe in your own mind, the way you want it. So imagine you are a producer or you are part of a team that gets to bring the life of Transformers, to life in your own universe, in your own timeline, so to speak. Like how Michael Bay did it with his movies. Now, I didn't mind Transformers 1 and 2, but I did have a problem with, Dark Side of the Moon did not appeal to me. Age of Extinction didn't, and definitely not The Last Night. The Bumblebee movie was okay, and I didn't really care for Rise of the Beasts a whole lot. But imagine just bringing your own thing into it. That's basically step 0. Step 1 is your character concept. Where is your inspiration coming from for that character? What kind of gear do they have? What are they going to look like? What vehicle are they going to turn into? What is your concept of your character? For me, I actually did make a character before I did this review. And it was very easy to come up with a concept. I always liked basically one of my favorite Transformers was Hot Rod or Bumblebee, someone who basically didn't think things through and probably reacted a little bit. I made up my own robot, Junkie. He's kind of like a cold-hearted Autobot, that is just trying to analyze and figure out how he can get to the war, to the end of the days of the war and put a stop to it, because he doesn't care for any of that. That was my concept. He doesn't care to be the hero. He just wants the war to stop. He wants to live in peace. He doesn't care about the Autobots and Decepticons, but he chooses the Autobot side. For me, in my own head canon, there's like 3 types of Transformers, 3 different factions. But in retrospect, there's actually many different factions. But let me tell you my 3. My 3 is very simple. You're either an Autobot, Decepticon, or pro-Cybertronian. Pro-Cybertronian means you don't care about the Autobots or the Decepticons. You just want Cybertron to strive, and you want to, basically, you want to strive. You don't really care about what the Autobots want and what the Decepticons want. And like I said, there was many different types of factions that actually sided with Autobots, such as the Wreckers, the Seekers. The Seekers were actually the Jets, such as Starscream, Acid Storm, Skywarp. They sided with the Decepticons, while the Wreckers, which took a lot of things apart, demolished things, and then fixed things, went and sided with the Autobots. And then you had the Insecticons, which were basically created by the Decepticons, and then you have the Dinobots. Anyway, moving on from there. Once you get the concept, you can move on to step 2, which is your essence score increases and skill point investment. Now, with this system, there is actually 4 different types of attributes. There's strength, which is your physical power and endurance. Speed, which is your agility, balance, and reflexes. Smarts, which is your awareness, mental acuity, intuition, and analysis. And social, which is your confidence, poise, charisma, and leadership. You actually start off with putting 1 point into each, and then you get a handful of points to actually put in there. But they recommend that you wait to the very end, because there's going to be things that you choose that will actually influence what you increase and what you don't. And then you actually get a certain number of skill points to put in skills, but once again, they recommend you hanging on to them until you choose the next few steps. Next, we'll go into step 3, selecting your influences. So influences is basically an idea of what kind of character you want to make. It's basically your character's background that comes with a set of perks and hang-ups, as they call, or perks and drawbacks, or my personal my personal favorite, advantages or disadvantages. But they call them influences and hangups. What has influenced your character to, to be who they are today, and what kind of hangups do they have from their background? It is recommended to choose a minimum of 1 for your character, marking down the influence perk, but ignoring the possible hangups. Me, personally, if you choose an influence, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, I recommend, I'm going to say you're going to have to choose 1 hangup per influence, regardless of which, and that's just me as the GM. You can choose up to 3 influences during character creation. If you pick additional influences, you receive their perks, but must choose a hangups. This is non-negotiable. So you can have up to 3 perks. If you have 3 perks, you have to have a maximum hangups of 2. But a minimum of... but see, if you also choose 3, you have to have a minimum of 2 as well. So you have to at least pick 2. No exceptions to there. But you can have up to 3. And that's about it. A hangup is a negative way of which your character influences affects them. Not only do hangups balance out the extra perks from extra influences, they flesh out your character, giving you additional opportunities to roleplay. And roleplay however you see fit, of course. Next is you're going to select your character's origin. A character's origin takes a different meaning depending on what kind of Essence 20 game you're running. And the Transformers, your origin defines your character's alt mode and the form that your character will take in their converted state. In this step, you also determine health and damage, of course. For more information, you can see combat in Chapter 9, and of course a lot more, and then the origins in Chapter 4. And then you're going to, of course, go down and select your role. Your role is whatever the position that your character wants to fulfill. For instance, my origin was... Let me see what my character's origin was, because I made a character called Junkie. Kind of named it after myself, of course, because that's what I like to do. Imagine myself like, okay, if I was a Transformer, who and what would I be, I literally chose, well, first let me get to the Transformer part. So, my influences was Security and Mechanist, and I chose Glacial and Skeptical as my hangups. I did choose the hangups. So, yep. So then you do have your origin. Origins actually come in many different forms. We will actually go through them real quick. But they also help you figure out what your alternate mode is going to be. And it does give you starting health, languages, so on and so forth. So, let's define basically your origins, which is basically what you call the chassis selection. You have Champion. Champion moves faster than anything else on 4 wheels and looks good doing it. Cutter, a sea craft. Cutters excel on water, rather riding down the river or out on the high seas. Lookout, experts at not bringing attention to themselves. Lookouts truly embody being robots in disguise. Monoliths. Monoliths have the biggest alt modes, which they use to throw their weight around. Outrider. Whether on the highway or off-road, nothing slows an outrider down. Rainmakers. Live up to their names by fulfilling the sky with munitions. Seeker. Masters of the sky. Seekers emulate Earth's fastest aircrafts. And support. Bulky and grounded. A support helps those in need. So a good example of what a champion would be is Blur. If you know about the Autobot Blur, Jazz, or Sunstreaker. Cutter would be more like Broadside, Depth Charge, and Sea Spray. Lookouts are generally those like Bumblebee, Mirage, and Blaster. Monoliths are your general big ones like Bulkhead, Ironhide, and Optimus Prime. I wish they would actually have some Decepticons in here as that, but they actually do use Decepticons in the actual Decepticon book, which we will not cover this round. Outriders more like Brawn, Hound, and Trailbreaker. Rainmaker is Hardhead, Omega Supreme, and Roadbuster. Seekers are Jetfire, Powerglide, and Windblade. Support is Grapple, Infernal, and Prow. And then there you go, you gotta get your general ideas from that. Alright, so once you choose your origin, You move down into the next one, and of course your origins will actually set. You get to choose one, and those do set your starting health, and do allow you to increase and make changes to your essence scores. Next, you must select a role, which we were discussing that your role is basically what fulfills your character. Unlike Influence's origins, which apply to all their benefits at character creation, first level is only the beginning of the benefits you gain from your role. When your character has gone on enough adventures, they go up a level, meaning their role gives them a new suite of benefits. With Essence 20, this does not follow character creation. It generally, depending on how long and how hard the adventure was, awards what you call a fourth of a level and half of a level. Which means if you do a fourth for adventures, before you go up a level, your Autobot or Decepticon would have to be on 4 separate adventures. You could also award no more than half a level. So it's possible if you do a fourth and then half, which is already 3/4, you just need another fourth and then you go up a level. It's usually good for the GM to keep track of all this, of who's present each day to day. So this doesn't deal with... so Essence D20 doesn't deal... Or Essence 20 doesn't deal with experience points as much as it just deals with participation and how many sessions you show up and what kind of level of the pie they award. So imagine, make a circle, make a pie and cut it into 4 equal pieces, and then you can color them in that way. That's a good idea. I've actually came up with that idea fairly recently. I actually like on how Essence 20 does that, and that is definitely a big thumbs up for me. So after you select your role, this actually comes up with your derived benefits, and then it gives you your perks and whatnot that you would gain for choosing a role. So roles are generally as listed here. You could be like an analysis, a field commander, a gunner, a mode master, a scientist, a scout, and a warrior. I could give you some examples of each. I think some examples of an analysis would be Hubcap, Jazz, and Mirage. Let's see, what would be good of a mode master? Let's pick mode master, because that one, blaster, broadside, and tracks. And then let's do a scout. Scouts, Bumblebee, Hot Rod, and Wheelie. So each one of these will, are much like, D20 a little bit. You got your level, you get your perks, and then you get your boosts. Once you get your boosts, are basically your essence scores, get to go up a certain number depending on what it is. For a scout, you gain a +1 to your speed essence and a +1 to your social essence at first level. At second level, you just get speed, and at third level, you just get smarts. So it does actually change. So your essence does change. And instead of assigning a certain level to it, they do change by the level. So that's another good idea that I actually liked better than most others. So right after that, right after you choose your role, you go into basically essence scores, tallying everything up. At first level, you should have 16 points invested in essence, and then you get your skills, of which should be up or down depending on your influences, origins, and roles that you pick. The book does go into some general perks, because you do actually start gaining general perks. You don't gain any at first level, but you do gain them at 4th, 8th, 11th, 15th, and 19th, and they do actually have a few things. The general perks are basically, they are a set of I would say neutral perks that basically their prerequisite are more level based or it's essence based. Basically, you have to have a certain essence score to select it, or you have to be at a certain level to select it. But anyone can select it. It doesn't matter of your influence, role, or origin. It just depends on your essence scores and your skills and where they are at. Next, you have equipment. Now, this doesn't follow your normal, so when you come into equipment and you get equipment, it doesn't follow your normal sense of equipment of, hey, I have the money, can I buy it? It follows only a sense of what you call requisitions, like soldiers. So, if it makes sense for your Autobot or Decepticon to have a certain weapon that you requisite from high command, basically you create, At character creation, I would say let them have whatever they can come up with, as long as it's within reason. After that, you actually have to roll for it, and depending on if the roll is a success or a failure, depends if you get it or not. But you can put in a request multiple times. So equipment does actually work a little bit different. I think the way that they do equipment for this game particularly actually definitely fits this setting. So I definitely give it a thumbs up on that one too. So far we're 2 thumbs up, no thumbs down, so we're doing pretty good. Inside the equipment, it does talk about hard points. You start off with 2 external hard points, which is basically any weapon that can actually come out of a hiding space that your robot in disguise seems to have, and that can fit in the hands of your character. Whereas you get 2 integrated hard points, that is something like, say, oh, I have rocket launchers on my back, and they come out and boom, basically there you go. Or basically like a good one of external hard points is having a ladder attached to your shoulders or your torso or your arms, or how the G1 Starscream actually has some of his weapons attached to his arms when he's in robot mode. And equipment comes in several different forms, such as standard, limited, restricted, prototype, and unique. And then you also are allowed, depending on your origins, roles, and whatnot, if you could actually have access to which one, including the upgrades. So equipment comes in those 5 types, and then you also get the same 5 types in upgrades. You may have access to standard or limited equipment, but you may only have access to standard upgrades, so on and so forth, and vice versa. And there's even a chart on this. Having access to standard equipment, but with limited upgrades, actually gives you access to limited equipment. Having access to standard and limited equipment, and then having access to limited upgrades actually gives you access to both standard upgrades, limited, and restricted upgrades. There's a table that actually does this on page 116. We will actually show that off real quick, as well as some of the artwork. So give me 1 second. I'm actually going to pull up my screen share. Alright, let me back this out. Okay, so you can see that my name is Tabletop Junkie. I'm trying to float everything under that name so you guys don't figure out my real name, track me down, and stalk me. Not saying anyone online would do that, but, try to be careful. So as you can see, we got a little bit of artwork here. I'm not sure which Autobot that is, but I do know that's an Autobot. So we got a little bit of artwork here, which I do like. But here's the equipment table, table 8.1. It is on page 116. I believe it is chapter 8. But this is what I was talking about, where you can actually line this up to your upgrade. So you may, like I said, you may have access to standard equipment, but have upgrade access to standard and limited. So this is kind of how you do it. So depending on what you have here is depending on what you may get as a final result, as having access to your final equipment even after an upgrade. That's pretty much what that means. And Sparta Chris, hail. Thank you for joining. Alright, so moving on. Next, Chapter 9 is basically talks about combat, exploration, and locations. And then Chapter 12 talks about threats, which basically is the GM section for GMs to basically, and players can actually get in these sections too a little bit to figure out how the game runs. This is basically your standard about how the system works, what you need to roll, how damage works, so on and so forth. Exploration is basically exploring the setting. Also talks about time, movement, special types of movement, environments, stuff that you can encounter in the Transformers universe. And threats, which is my personal favorite, is a few examples of threats that you could face up with, such as facing off with the Acid Storm. And it actually has a little bit of a character background with him, as well as a character drawn up, Acid Storm is considered threat level 10, which means he is a level 10 character. Let me back this out a little bit, and you can basically see that right here. So it basically gives you a nice drawn-up character work, which I do like. And here's Acid Storm. These weapons right here is what I was talking about as external hardpoints. So I'm glad I actually came across this one. So some specific Decepticons, of course, and a little bit of artwork for you. And then, of course, the final chapter is basically running an adventure and an index and a character sheet. And basically how to do it. This game is very informative and has lots of information. Bravo Renegade Games, you got a thumbs up for that. Artwork is also magnificent. I do actually like that. So another thumbs up. So we're 4 for 4 on that. Real quick before we actually go anywhere, I want to show you guys the title page, which you can also see on my main screen. But the title page. The artwork is magnificent. I do like it. So look at that. That is magnificent. Renegade Games, you guys did a good job on this one. I do like it, and I do like the coloring, the shading. It all fits. And kind of gets you in the mood for Transformers. Really does. Let me see. Do I have a personal favorite? I don't think so. This one, I think, is my personal favorite of Bumblebee. RC, Grimlock. Cannot forget about the good old Dinobots. Alright, so artwork, another thumbs up. So we're 5 for 5. Is there anything else? So I basically got a perfect score, 10 out of 10 on this. Is there anything else I would have liked to have seen? Anything they can improve on? Any criticisms with it? Well, not really. I mean, if you like the Transformers universe and, you know, you like to play in the Transformers universe, this is definitely a must-buy. It does have everything that you'll need in it, as well as online. You can also get the GM screen as well as some custom dice. I wish we would have gone a little bit more maybe into detail about, I don't know, maybe Cybertron a little bit, maybe some Cybertronian vehicles. We could have used that. Maybe we could use a campaign setting booklet, which I don't think they have yet, but they do have campaign settings for after the Autobots come to Earth. Maybe something out of the ordinary. So far, this is actually pretty much sticks to the actual licensed material and source material. So I actually have nothing but good things to say about it. Like I said, maybe I'd like to see a few other things, but I'm not. But really, basically, that was just the core book. We'll have to actually see what the future of Transformers happens with Renegade Game Studios. So, overall, I do give it a 10 out of 10, but I don't believe in perfect scores, so I'm going to have to give it at least a 9 out of 10. We'll have to see. You know what? I wish in this book they did incorporate Decepticons a little bit more. But I do like on how they went up to the Combiner Wars and the War of the Primes with the booklet. They did add in some extra characters that were new to some of the more recent source material, so I do like that. So, like I said, 9 out of 10 because I don't believe in perfect scores. They do have the Combiner book, the Enigma Combinations, which is the Combiner booklet, but that was always a thing. I always felt like maybe that should be in the core book. So I would have liked to have seen that. So for that not being in there, I do give that a thumbs down. But like once again, I'm not going to be nitpicky on that. So 9 out of 10, definitely a must buy. Well, without rambling in circles, which I just did 3 times over, yes, I know I did it. It's just, I just can't express how much I did love this book. So, and I am actually still reading it. I plan on running a Transformers game, definitely in the near future. So I'd like to thank once again for Ironcaster, Mrs. Tabletop, and Spartacus for coming out, checking out my review. I hope it was very well informative for you guys, and I hope that you guys did like it, at the very least. For the future viewers, once again, I hope it's very informative. It definitely is flashy, so it does have information, and it has very good artwork. You will not be disappointed for the price. For the price, I did buy the $90 bundle, which gives me 3 or 4 books and their PDFs, and I got some dice with it. So definitely worth the buy. That's everything I have at this time. Thank you for tuning in. This is Tabletop Junkie telling you all to work hard, play hard, game on, everybody. Have a great and wonderful day.